All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I'm stoked today to have David Kovalevski from Waka Coffee on the podcast. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for having me. Excited to
Appreciate.
be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy man, so thanks for coming on. Do you mind giving everyone just like a high level overview of what Waka Coffee is?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, nice to meet you and all the listeners. And again, I apologize. I told you before for my accent. I'm originally from Israel. I
People are gonna
started
love it.
Waka Coffee. Sorry.
I said people are gonna love it.
Okay, I hope so. Uh, Maybe you need like subtitles or something in
There you
case
go.
there's any issue. I started Waka Coffee 2.5 years ago. After moving from Israel to New York City, I started because I realized that I grew up drinking instant coffee, but many people in the US think badly about instant coffee or did not even know what instant coffee is. And at the time, I studied marketing, and I realized that the biggest gap in this category is people probably not educated as much as what instant coffee is, how good and beneficial it can be to their livelihood, and just started Waka Coffee bootstrapping with the idea of providing more higher quality type of instant coffee that marketed differently, that looks differently than your Maxwell or Folgers or the old school brands. And it's made from 100% Arabica beans, so it's the same type of coffee beans you can find at your local coffee shop. And it's also freeze dried to preserve the aroma and flavors of the beans. Traditional instant coffee brands usually use spray dried beans and Robusta beans. So Robusta beans is an inferior type of coffee bean. It's cheaper to grow. It can grow in lower altitudes. So they usually use those type of beans and they spray dry it because it's cheaper again to process. But then you have this bitter taste of the Robusta beans and also the burnt taste of the spray drying because they apply heat to
Sure.
make the instant coffee. Uh,
Ah, got it. Okay. Interesting.
yeah,
And
a little,
so
chemistry lesson here.
love that. No, that's really interesting. I love coffee, and obviously, I told you before we started. Anytime I come across a coffee brand, I love to learn more. And yours is very unique, so I think this is awesome.
Yeah.
The first thing I was curious. I mean, you kind of gave the answer there, but like I wanted to know where the kind of the concept came from. So I guess one thing I didn't know. So you're saying over in the Middle East, like instant coffee is really popular.
Yes, so instant coffee is actually pretty popular everywhere, but in the US. So instant coffee still to this day is the most popular coffee method preparation in Asia and Europe, even in Australia, Canada. In the US, it was popular as well somewhere in the 60s, 70s, and then it was forgotten at the bottom shelf of the grocery store. But because of the second, third wave of coffee in the US, but to this day, most countries around the world still drink instant coffee and skewed heavily towards instant coffee.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea that was the thing. So when you obviously like on here, what I told you before, really like to get into how you went from 0 to 1. So you came to New York. Were you trying instant coffees and they all just sucked? Is that pretty much like, what was going through your head? And you're like, why are all these so bad in New York?
Yes, so it actually it was a little process. So back when I lived in New York, I worked full time. I went to school nighttime, full time as well. So my schedule was 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. every day. I drank a lot of coffee, as you can imagine, like
Sure.
3, 4 cups a day. And I realized that I was spending much of money. I had 3 different types of coffee at a day. It was very inconsistent, also expensive, inconvenient, and I just going thinking of what did I do when I grew up in Israel? Was it as complicated there as well? And then I realized that the answer was not as much. Yes, I could get a cup of coffee from a coffee shop, but at home, in the office, when I was in the military, I always drank instant coffee. There was always instant coffee wherever I was. And then I realized that it's weird. People don't drink instant coffee in the US. So I started asking my local friends, like, do you know any good instant coffee brands? Went to a bunch of grocery stores. First of all, it took me some time to find instant coffee in the coffee aisle
Sure.
from again, because they kind of hide them at the bottom. And then when I did try them, it tasted nothing like what I used to, or something that I could drink on a daily basis. So I 1 plus 1. I'm like, okay, my background in marketing. I drink instant coffee. It's huge category in the US as well, but people don't realize it. And everywhere but in the US, people drink instant coffee. So there must be an opportunity here as well. And then I kind of started, thinking how can I become this brand that people will actually reintroduce instant coffee to US consumers.
Sure. Oh yeah. Okay. Makes a ton of sense. The next thing I comes to mind to me is, what are there other benefits to instant coffee? I mean, obviously the instant part
Yeah,
is probably the key.
yeah,
But when I'm thinking back to like when that must have changed in the US going from instant coffee to what we have today, it almost seems backwards, right? It's like if instant coffee was, unless it just always tasted bad, which it sounds like it probably did.
right.
Um, why did we move to all these other processes that use bigger machinery and lots of different materials, and like it's a lot more effort to get a good cup of coffee using the other ways, pour over, espresso, drip coffee, whatever. Is there any other reasons besides it just being instant? I guess, because I guess to like answer my own question, I'm assuming if it tastes as good as all these other coffees, then yeah, why would you want it simpler, quicker?
Yeah. Well, that's the $1 million question, why people think badly about instant coffee these days. I assume it's that coffee became such as an experience, again, with the second, third waves of coffee and the specialty coffee, and especially the espresso drinks that Starbucks kind of get that movement going. And people thought of instant coffee as it's too simple. It's just, they wanted to elevate their coffee experience. They wanted to tell their friends, I drink this espresso from this expensive machine. Look at the beans. Again, it's kind of like wine. You want to talk about how you make it, what types of beans, what types of products. And instant coffee is looked as a simple product, which it is. And then again, the bigger brands, their strategy was it's a convenience product. We cannot compete on quality, and we want to sell as much as possible for the lowest price possible. So they did not even try to compete on the quality aspect. They wanted to be the $2 wine bottle that people
Yeah.
just buy as out of a habit when they need it. And it worked for them with the demographics they are targeting, and they continued that way. The idea with Waka is it is convenience, but it also can taste good. It can be from quality beans. It doesn't have to be your fancy espresso, from intelligentsia, but it could taste really good. It could be very convenient, and just a good match from convenience and quality. And that's what we are trying to achieve with Waka. So we definitely, don't want to be the fanciest coffee out there, but we also don't want to be the low quality instant coffee you're probably familiar with.
Got it. So it's like you're really going after like a more premium version of what's out there today, kind of in that white space.
Yeah, I don't really like the word premium, and that's also why I was avoiding on the packaging and like in descriptions. I describe Waka as quality. It's a quality type of bean.
Got it.
There are premium coffees out there, but I want to make the coffee experience more accessible. That to me, like when I went to school and worked, it was inconvenient for me to drink these four types of coffee. So I want to make the coffee experience more approachable and convenient. And I think through instant coffee, more people can experience coffee in a much easier and tastier way.
Got it. Yeah, I love that. Totally makes sense. Do you remember, I guess, the very first batch of Waka coffee? Like when you think back to when you first started it, and I believe it was 2018. Do
Yeah.
you remember, like, how did you source, and like the process of getting instant coffee? Is that different than, buying regular coffee beans or ground beans? Is there like a difference in the way that gets turned into instant coffee? And do you remember like the very first batch of the one you created?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, we don't create the coffee in the US. We source them and they're manufactured at origin, either Colombia or India at this point. And we source the instant coffee and we package it here in California. The first batch of instant coffee, I actually packaged myself, each packet with a spoon and a heat sealer at a commercial kitchen. It took me hours because each box has 8 packets. So I had to heat seal and refill each packet individually myself.
Oh, wow.
Um, so definitely, and we talked about it for a little bit. This entire company was bootstrapping from day one. There was no outside investment. I literally similar to the RX bar story, started with
Sure.
$10,000.
Yeah.
I actually listened to their podcast and like, okay, I can do it if they did it and they created that, and kind of inspired me. So same thing, $10,000, bunch of credit card debt, sourced everything, had a commercial kitchen and packaged everything myself. And I have those photos still from that day of
Yeah.
all these packets and all the heat sealer and everything. And it took hours. So looking back, it's reminiscent at those moments. But when I was at the moment, I'm like, okay, where is it going? I cannot stand for hours here packaging it myself.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember if the first batch was good?
It was good. The good part is because we source it from the origin. We can scale, and it's also consistent in taste, which is also another benefit of instant coffee. Is that
Ah,
you can create the same consistency in flavor, batch over batch. So yes, the beans are sometimes different, but because they freeze dried the same way, they roasted the same way, they use the same types of beans. It varies crop to crop with the beans, but it's usually you can create a very consistent flavor, which also makes it easier for us to have recurring customers because the taste doesn't change as much crop over crop.
sure. Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, before I actually stored the coffee, I tried very different blends, different companies, different sources, compared notes and wrote notes and the descriptions of coffee because people still want to learn more about where the coffee is coming from, what the tasting notes. So it took me about a year before that first batch to kind of realize what will make a quality product. So I tasted a bunch of products during that year. But when the first batch arrived, it was, the perfect, what I was looking for.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's very rare. You know what I mean? It's very rare to have
Yeah.
like your first batch be something that high, high quality and up to your standards. Excuse me. I feel like a lot of people go through that process and it takes a long time to kind of tinker and get to the perfect product. Do you also remember early on, you said you came from Israel, and what was it when you told family, friends that you wanted to start this instant coffee company? How was that accepted? I love to ask founders like what they kind of went through when they told their friends and family. And do you remember kind of like one of the initial conversations where you were like, I'm going forward with this, I'm starting this business, and just like how that process went for you?
Yeah, well, the close friends and family, I feel that like even if they think your idea is stupid, they will not tell you that. So I'm sure a lot of people thought that like, I worked in tech before. I was doing marketing for a SaaS company, and then all of a sudden I'm going to sell instant coffee on the internet.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people raised some eyebrows. But overall, they were supportive. They knew that I always wanted to do something in coffee and be an entrepreneur since I was 13 years old. I was collecting menus from coffee shops. I still have the binder with a bunch of menus from coffee shops. So I always wanted to have my own coffee shop. Just didn't know it's going to be an online instant coffee shop.
Sure. Yeah.
So they were excited. Obviously, I'm sure that their thinking was like, okay, good luck. I'll give it a few months. We'll see how it goes.
Right.
Some people, especially Israelis that grew up drinking instant coffee, didn't realize the idea of you're gonna sell instant coffee for how much? That was, also some of the reactions. And my response was, it's a higher quality, it's different. So I had to defend my ideas a lot, and till this day. But overall, I think when I talked with people, they were supportive. But I'm sure that wasn't always, what they were thinking about internally. I actually, it's a funny thing. I also listened to a bunch of podcasts, and I heard Mike Dubin giving a commencement speech, and he was saying that I give you a commencement speech, but back in the day, I was the guy who was selling razors on the internet. So it's
Yeah.
the same thing. It's like I'm selling instant coffee on the internet. So but yeah, overall they were supportive, but I'm sure they had their questions and doubts.
Sure, as everyone probably does, right? Especially if it's your first venture on your own into a space
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily have a ton of experience in. But I think it's really cool. I always think it's interesting to hear, some people have the story of a lot of buy-in, some people will put a lot of pushback, and so it's interesting to hear like how that all started for you. kind of to build off what you said, it's obviously a quality coffee. I personally haven't had it yet, but I would love to know, when you talk to potential consumers and people listening to this, that want to check out Waka Coffee, what do you tell them? Like, what is it? Is there something you can compare it to, or what's the reason that people should try Waka Coffee over, a different coffee brand? Like, where do you kind of like, how do you kind of walk consumers through like the competitive advantage of using Waka Coffee in their morning?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I go into use cases of like, how do you make your coffee now? How much money you spend on coffee? If you ever tried instant coffee, a lot of people don't even know what instant coffee is, or if they heard of it, they heard bad things and never tried it. And then I kind of walk them through the use case. Okay, do you live by yourself? Do you actually make a coffee pot? Then you have to clean it. Then you have to,
Hmm.
is it only for one person? Do you have how much money you spend on capsules, how much money you spend on your coffee maker, and kind of finding the ways that how I can convince people that instant coffee is so much easier. It doesn't taste, bad as you think it, and it could help you. And I always say that it doesn't have to be, all or nothing. If you already spend $500 on your fancy espresso machine, I'm not gonna, okay, just drink Waka now from now on. But you can run your fancy espresso machine in the morning, but then your second, third cup during lunchtime that you don't want to run it again. You don't want to clean. You don't want to have all the mess. You want it just quick and delicious. Try Waka Coffee and see how it helps you to consume your coffee. Um, Obviously, I have a lot of backlash of like instant coffee is bad. So then I go into the process of how we different from the traditional instant coffee brands and what's the difference between Arabica beans and Robusta beans and the way it's freeze dried versus spray dried. And then people just give it a try and they love it. And I think it's as close as it can get to brewed coffee minus
Hmm.
all the mess of making it. So because it dissolves in your cup, there's no coffee beans waste. You don't have to clean.
Ah, true. Yeah.
You don't have to clean the machine. You don't have to clean. Dispose the residuals, the coffee beans, and you can just make it one cup at a time. It's fresh every time you make it because it's only one cup when you make it.
Right. Is it fair to say, I just thought of this because I literally have tea here sitting next to me. Is it
Yeah.
like relatively the same concept as the way a tea bag works? Like, is that you basically get hot, either boiling or just really hot water, and you have it's like a, a tea bag, but it's a coffee bag that you're kind of dipping in, and it's kind of the same process?
So no bag at all. So it's coffee granules
Oh,
that literally dissolve in your water. So we have single serve. So let's say you open a packet and you just pour it into your water and it fully disappears. It dissolves and it creates a delicious cup of coffee. So liquid
oh.
IV style, but coffee.
Oh, love that. Okay, got
Yeah,
it. Very
yeah,
cool. Oh, never. Okay, got it. I didn't know that was how that worked. Very cool.
yeah.
That gives people a much better understanding what the product is too, I think, because
Exactly. Yeah.
the whole time I've been envisioning it like it would work like a tea, but that's really cool.
So it's also in that scenario, it's also better, for the environment. There's no tea bags. Our packaging is mostly recyclable. It's ships very light, so it also saves on carbon emissions. So we also go on the environmental angle as well. That there's no waste in the packaging. There's no waste in the processing. How you make your coffee. There are no machines, no electricity as much. It's just literally kettle with hot water. You can also mix it
Sure.
with cold water and make iced coffee much easier.
Oh, really? So if you just filled, like a cup of water with ice and poured your product in, you could mix it up and you have iced coffee.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, mix it before you put the ice,
Okay, sure. Yeah.
so it will dissolve easily. But yeah, with cold water, give it a few stirs, and it will fully dissolve. A lot of people use frothers these days, so it's even much easier with frother. But yeah, it's as easy as that.
Love that. That's actually really cool. To me, iced coffee in the summer, I always start to like transition to iced coffee, I notice,
Yeah.
but it's always a pain in the ass. I always feel like I have to like brew we have like an espresso type maker where you can make a regular cup of coffee in it. And I always feel like I'm like making a cup of coffee in like a mug because that's the only thing that fits. Then I have to put it in like a mixer bottle with ice and shake it up and then dump it back into it. It's like it's a whole thing. So
Right.
this sounds
So
nice and convenient.
you mix it with water, give it a shake. You can also, protein shakes. A lot of people will want to have the caffeine kick or the coffee flavor. So you just, again, it dissolves in whatever it is. So you just pour a few granules of coffee in your shake, coffee in your protein shake. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. You could basically flavor anything with some coffee flavor, protein
Right.
shake or whatever you're taking. Love that. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, and you launched this in 2018. One thing I love to ask is, did you go from your full-time job and jump in this full-time, or did this start as kind of a side hustle and then you jumped into Waka Coffee? And like, could you walk everyone through just that process? I think it's a really pivotal and important part of any
Yeah.
founder journey is like how you went from usually a full-time job to becoming an entrepreneur.
Definitely. So, well, first, like I said, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I was, collecting ideas, was journaling my ideas all the time, and so it was a process. It wasn't like overnight. This is what I'm doing. And then when I kind of nailed down on the idea of I want to create instant coffee brand, it took me about a year of just talking with suppliers, not selling anything. I did not have a website. It was just talking with suppliers, packaging, working on a little bit designs, and that was a side hustle at that time. I did have a full-time job then, but I did not have a product. I didn't have a website. I didn't sell anything. But fortunately, with timing, my wife and I also moved to LA at the time, and that what triggered my okay, I'm gonna go full-time before I launch this product, because I know myself that I need to focus on one thing at a time, and it just was the right opportunity. We moved, and I didn't want to work remote at the time. It was pre-COVID. People,
Okay.
it was different working remotely. I'm like, I cannot work remote, and I want to focus on this idea. So then in 2018, when we moved in August, I started it full time. Started having the physical product in hand, built the website, and then launched it in October 2018, and was devoted all in it. Looking back, was it the smartest idea just to start it full time? For me, probably yes, but also not sure because you have a lot of frustrating days. You don't get a paycheck, so that's another stress on top of it. So I don't know if I will done it again the same way, but um, for me, that was the right move, just to do it full time after this year of research.
Got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Was that a? I'm sure that like you said, that was stressful. What were some of the things you had to like think through? Like the one that I've mentioned on here before that I think everyone goes to right away is like health insurance, for example.
Right.
If you're not getting a paycheck, like what did you do for some of those things? Like, I mean, you must have just had enough put away that you were able to kind of bridge the gap until you started selling. But what'd you do for things like, I don't know, health insurance or other things that usually,
Yeah.
a company helps pay for?
Well, it was definitely stressful financially. Luckily, I was married at the time and still married, but I had my wife to support us, and she's an attorney. She's working for the government, so nothing crazy salaries, but still decent to support us at the beginning. And we had the health insurance through her. But after a month or two, and when you start, you have days with zero sales, and then you're like, I have zero sales today. I have no paycheck. It kind of can, put you down,
Sure.
quite literally. So after a month or two, I was also looking for consultant jobs that I could do on the side. So I was doing helping other brands with my marketing experience on Upwork, or doing some consultancy online. So I had always some sort of small income on the side at the first year. Nothing similar to the paycheck I had. I did not save a lot of money also beforehand, so it was definitely a stressful time. But you have to work it through. So
Sure.
with Upwork, I don't want to say it's easy, but you can find a job on Upwork doing consulting. You can do whatever it takes if you want to make it work.
Got it. Upwork. Okay, that's one I haven't heard of. So there you go.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. And I think there's a lot of value, I'm sure, in just diving in full time. I mean, I talk to a lot of people who do the side hustle thing. I get that. And I think that's one way to do it. But it is interesting that people that dive full in, it's kind of like, I got to make this work. I got to figure it
Yeah.
out and it's got to work because I'm betting I'm going all in on this. So totally get that. And so you launched in October of 2018. Now we're sitting here at the end of June 2021. As you launched the brand, I know you said you launched online. So was that primarily like D2C and Amazon?
So when I just launched, it was just D2C for the first almost year, maybe even longer than a year. No Amazon at all. I was afraid of Amazon. I don't
Sure.
know why, but I was. scared that it's gonna hurt the brand. I always looked at Warby Parker and Away and like what they built, and they are not on Amazon. So for the first year or so, I was not on Amazon. It was just D2C, and I did not even run any ads. So it was just word of mouth and also a lot of PR. And I can dive deeper into that as well, of like what's the growth hacks that I did in that regard. But started with Amazon only probably in 2019,
Okay.
end of 2019.
Right before COVID.
2019, end of
Yeah.
no,
A
so
few
mid
months before.
2019. I had a
Okay.
few months before COVID,
Got it.
then COVID kind of accelerated it, but
Yeah.
probably middle 2019 then.
So then, you're online. Have you grown distribution anywhere else besides online channels at this point? Are you like in any retail stores or anything else?
Yeah, so we just launched with our first retail partner, Central Market in
Nice.
Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the cool part, through the past 2.5 years, we had few opportunities, people reaching out because they found us online. We had some quite success online, and we were kind of pushing it back because I didn't feel that we are ready. Again, the fear of that I had with Amazon, I also have the fear of, I don't want to burn bridges. I want to make sure that I'm ready. I read a lot of stories about people scaling really fast and then it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
it's a hard balance of I want to push back, but also I want to work and grow. So we just finished a leading CPG accelerator SKU in Austin,
Nice.
and
Yeah.
and
Big
I
one.
got and I got a bunch of really good mentors in retail and advisors. And at this point, I felt that we are ready to launch in retail. And also, Central Market is relatively smaller than your Kroger or whatever it is. So it could be also a really good test for us in retail. So we just launched, really excited about it in all of their stores. But we are primarily online. We also have some business to business partners. So
Okay.
we have sold at some headquarters and hotels. Some hotels leave our packets in the rooms instead of a K-cup machine. They'll put just a few packets in a small kettle. So yeah, these are our main channels. We definitely see the future in retail, but want to get to it slowly and smartly.
Makes a ton of sense. I always use the saying, and this is from my experience at RX, is it's great when we unlock new distribution. It was great to like, get on a shelf, but what really matters is if you can move it off the shelf, right? Like
Right.
if you get the distribution, I mean, first of all, if you pay for it, then obviously you're already starting from behind. So if you're paying slotting and paying to be on that shelf space, then it just becomes utterly important to make sure it's a product that moves. So hearing that you're building a business online first, I mean, that's key. That's huge.
Yeah, and same thing with RX. They didn't go to retail right away. They went to gyms and they found a channel that could prove the concept first.
Yeah.
So that's what we do online. And yeah, with retail, you don't want to get kicked out after 6 months and never get back to this retailer again. So we're trying to make it as wisely as we can.
Definitely. No, that makes sense. And you mentioned, worried about Amazon, worried about
Yeah.
retailers. I totally get that too. Just there's a lot of things you got to do, a lot of little things you got to get right. Otherwise, maybe it won't go as planned. You kind of hit on it, but did you say that COVID for Waka Coffee was a big year online? I'm assuming like Amazon fueled a ton of growth and probably D2C as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, COVID was very, uh, I'm feeling bad when I say it, but it was a pivotal moment for COVID for Waka because our growth was exponential and our brand awareness. Um, Part of it because of COVID and people were just buying coffee for home and working from home, but also in April, I don't know if you've seen, instant coffee kind of went viral with whipped coffee, Dalgona coffee.
Oh,
Uh,
no, I don't know if I saw that.
yeah, so whipped coffee it
I
started
did.
originally.
Whipped. My wife
Yeah,
big on the whip. Yes. Okay, hold on.
yes.
That rung a bell. It took me a second.
Yeah, so it's made from instant coffee. It started, years ago in India and in South Korea, but then from here to there, all of a sudden in April it became viral on TikTok. It's just basically you mix instant coffee, water, and sugar, and whip it, and it looks creamy. And it went crazy viral on TikTok. We were sold out of all of our products in a week, and everyone was sharing, and we kind of rode the wave. The great part is that right before it started, I always have interns that are A, younger than me, and B, probably much better than me on, TikTok
On TikTok, yeah,
and the
sure.
trends that I'm trying on TikTok, but I'm always failing, but they're really good at it. So somewhere in like mid March, before Dalgona became a huge hit, they kind of say like, let's do something with Dalgona. It's instant coffee. So we filmed videos, we did, social posts, we did blogs. And for the first week or two of this trend, we were the first result on Google.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, we got like some days, like 40,000 hits just from a blog post about Dalgona on Google. Obviously, we're not first on Google anymore because everyone wrote about it from the New York Times, LA Times. But at the beginning, we were first on Google just because the interns told me about it. And we wrote a blog post about it.
Wow.
So we had tremendous success with that. And ever since we're, obviously, like with all CPG brands, there was a downhill, a little bit in May, June.
Sure.
But it's, starting to pick up again. And it was part of our mission. It reintroduced instant coffee to new people, to new demographics in a different way.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's crazy. I always say COVID to me, and from talking to people on here, there's two types of brands. There's the ones that personally, maybe weren't ready for the e-com boom,
Yeah,
even though it's been coming for so long. Like they just kind of were waiting and just hadn't taken advantage of it. And I think they missed the huge wave. And then there's a lot of brands I've talked to that, I mean, they just jumped all over it and rode the wave. And it's crazy. I mean, obviously COVID was a really tough year for all of us, but,
right.
at the same time, there are a lot of brands, especially ones that are e-commerce focused, that had huge years, just with the eyes and the traffic moving more to online. And I think it's going to stay to some degree. Like I think obviously there's some declines year over year just because there's more people are out and about and willing to go to stores again. But I think for the vast majority of people, it was an opportunity to learn how convenient e-commerce can be if you haven't really
Right.
used e-commerce for a lot of stuff. Food being, in my opinion, probably one of those categories that a lot of people had been hesitant on purchasing food online,
Mhm.
food and beverages. And so it's interesting. I mean, it's great to hear brands like you that, had a strong year and hopefully got a ton of new people into the funnel.
Yeah, and we were only online at this point, so we focused a lot on SEO and growth hacks and being on all the top instant coffee lists. So we got very lucky also with the trend because people were searching for instant coffee, and
Right.
because we were already online, they found Waka Coffee right away. Um, and it's just we were ready, but it was also the timing and a lot of luck with the trend as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Everything, there's a little bit of luck in everything
Yeah,
successful, I think, you know what I mean?
yeah.
We chatted about this a little bit before too. I mean, the next thing after distribution, I always, I'm always very interested in, and you mentioned it a little bit, is just the concept between bootstrapping and raising capital. And you mentioned that you've mostly bootstrapped this, but just would love to know your perspective. And as you've started this brand over the last 3 years, like what your concept has been and like how you've thought through the process of bootstrapping versus raising capital.
Yeah. Well, partially is that I'm from Israel. I didn't grow up here. I don't have a huge network of bunch of VC friends that went to school with me. So first, I didn't raise money because also I knew that I won't be able to raise money from the get go, especially without any proof of concept. So I was kind of on my own, and but also it made me work so much harder because the money that I was spending was my money, and it was my debt that I'm getting with credit cards, and I had to make it work. So for 2 years, it was just living off the profits and growing slowly and steady. And again, that's what we're still trying to do. Uh, we are raising a little bit of capital now, but nothing crazy, no like millions of dollars. Again, just to take us to the next step. And even at this step is that seeing the culture of like I just gonna raise as much as I can even before I have a proof of concept. It's not something that that's the route that I want to take. So I understand that we'll have to raise capital because we won't be able to grow to the level that I see the brand going to. But also, again, I want to make it more wisely in a way that will also make sense for the brand and the company and the stakeholders instead of just going all in, raising capital, burning a bunch of cash. So I bootstrapped all of it, and I saw a huge value of bootstrapping it. And obviously, we will have to raise more capital moving forward. But even then, I still want to have the bootstrapping mentality.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And when you think about raising capital, when you say you need to in the future, is that for people listening who've never raised capital or don't know really what that process looks like? I mean, is that really because in order for you to unlock, X distribution point? So when I say that, like Target, Walmart, whoever it may be, a Whole
Yeah.
Foods, whatever the retailer is, you think you need investment in order to be able to like produce enough coffee to sell to those people and with cash flow situations with payment terms. Like what are the things that you're thinking through of why you would need to raise capital then?
Right. So a few reasons. Well, first of all, we also always want to innovate. So R&D and creating new products, new supply chain, obviously buying inventory in advance. So to make sure that we always have inventory, we always have to have a stash of inventory that costs
Sure.
money.
Yeah.
Office costs money, and also, especially being a DTC online brand, it's really hard to move your product without online marketing. And online marketing, Google and Amazon will always win. So it costs a lot of money to spend on ads. Again, you want to make it in a wise way, but still it costs money. And it's kind of like the chicken of the egg. It's like you have a great product, but you need people to see that you have a great product. So you also have
Right.
to spend money on online marketing. And the other things that every company has to spend is like people and the brand. So the brand, for example, till this day, I designed the packaging on Canva for free 2.5 years
Oh, nice.
ago.
Love Canva. That's what I use for the
Yeah.
podcast.
So I realize it's also time we go to the next step. We have to change it. So these are things that cost money. It doesn't cost millions of dollars, right? You don't have to hire the fanciest branding agency, but it costs some money. So you need to have some capital. And yeah, these are the main things that we will need capital for, especially also unlocking those new distribution channels. But the investors I have so far, they're also people who are in the CPG industry.
Ah,
Uh, so it also helps just to have a sounding board and more connections. Again, I don't have CPG network. I didn't work in CPG. I don't know investors. I don't know VCs. It's kind of like growing your network through more people that believe in you and cheering for you.
sure.
So as they have a stake in your company, they will be supportive of you, behind you. For them, it's small amounts. It's angel investors, but they are invested in you and the brand, and they will tell their friends, they'll tell their network, they'll buy your product. So I also see it that way of more people to support you.
Love that. That's really cool. And you mentioned innovation. I know you guys innovated into tea already. Is there anything
Yeah.
else? I don't know if you don't want to share anything, that's totally fine. Is there anything as you think of the future of Waka that you guys might think about getting into?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very. I have a vision, but the actual SKUs, I have. I didn't call out this is going to be the next flavor or anything like that. I have a vision. We want to be the best instant coffee out there.
Love
So we
it.
want to be the best instant coffee online. We want to be the best instant coffee at the grocery store. Luckily for us, there's no innovation in instant coffee till this day. So if you go
Yeah.
to a grocery store, it's the same huge plastic containers with the same low quality products, no flavors, nothing. We're probably not going to go from at the beginning into the functional area. There's some functional coffees out there already. Probably not that route at the beginning, but anything from iced coffee, flavored coffee, more varieties, more origins. This is definitely something that we're looking for.
Love it. That's really cool. I mean, I think that's a huge to me, that category is just going to explode. If I had to take a bet today, I just feel like the coffee category as a whole is a place ripe for innovation. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you feel that way too. But between function and just a lot, some of these new younger brands like you guys that are coming into the space, I think it definitely it's nice. It's a challenge to the old school big brands that have always just dominated that category.
Right. Yeah. And again, for them, it was just on autopilot. We're selling the same product,
Yeah.
same people, and now they have these challengers that come into the game, and they will have to adapt or acquire.
Right, right, exactly. No, 100%. So you've been in this for 3 years. What would you say has been like the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle up till now? I mean, there's a lot of things I'm sure come to mind, but like if you had to tell the audience, what's one thing you've had to really like persevere through to stay on track and help grow Waka Coffee?
Yeah, well, I'll say two things. One is more marketing. The other one is more operation. So from the marketing side, and I always have to defend instant coffee. So it's changing people's perceptions, which is really hard. It's not something that you already do and we just offer a new product. We need to change the way you drink coffee. So that could be hard. So there's a lot of education. So obviously, just me having conversation with people, I always have this, wait, but instant coffee doesn't taste good. So then I have to
Right.
go on my entire, explanation of why to defend Waka coffee. And then on the other operation side is because we source our products from different countries, our packaging from different countries. It's a lot of moving parts. Especially during COVID, we had not as huge as with other brands because we could get back in stock pretty quickly, but we were sold out of literally everything the first 2 weeks of April. So
Oh, wow.
for about a week and a half of April, and especially when whipped coffee was huge, we were out of everything. So we rode the wave as much as we could, but if we had more products, we could even gotten even more from that wave.
Sure.
Uh, and that was a little complicated, especially during COVID. And I had to find new packaging suppliers, and we had to find and expedite our coffee shipments, and it was a little, as everyone else had issues and difficulties at that time. But it's also still to this day difficult because we're not a huge brand. We need to buy still in small-ish quantities. So it's also price fluctuates and different suppliers, and we need to keep track of all of that. So that's definitely the second main hurdle. But the good thing is, like I said again, that we can scale pretty quickly and overcome these hurdles because the mechanism that we have in place already.
Got it. Love it. No, I mean that's super interesting, and I think it's good advice for anyone. There's going to be a lot of that as you scale any business, right? Um, so where you sit today, what do you think the next one to, I guess I'll give you 3 years looks like for Waka Coffee? Do you have any like, macro plans, goals? What are you striving for over the next couple of years?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we want to continue. I feel like that we barely scratched the surface online, so we have a very bigger opportunity online. Again, all what we did thus far was pretty much bootstrapping in house. So making this process more robust and bringing more consumers through our online channels, but also getting and opening more doors in retail, introducing new younger consumers to this category. Like you said, I think the category is already growing. It grew by 30% last year, and it's growing more. It's growing more than the overall coffee category year over year. So more people learning what instant coffee is, and I want to have Waka Coffee the one that introducing instant coffee to those new consumers. So
Sure.
we need to make sure that we're still the best instant coffee out there, but we also continue innovating with new products, education, and being where those consumers are when they just getting introduced to instant coffee for the first time.
Got it. And when your time at Waka Coffee someday, way down the road, is over, what do you want to be remembered for?
Uh, the company that reintroduced instant coffee in America. People again think often that instant coffee doesn't taste well. I want in 5 years people talking about, oh my god, did you try this cool young instant coffee brand,
Yeah.
without being ashamed saying that they drink instant coffee. So we are not the coolest soda or functional beverage or CBD brand. We're instant coffee, and we are proud of it. But I want to see in 3-4 years of people of like, oh my god, I love instant coffee. This is what I drink on a daily basis.
Love that. No, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. I think you guys are on to something, and excited to see what you guys can do. I mean, I'm definitely gonna try to try some of this. I'm a big coffee fan, so I need to try some Waka coffee.
Yeah.
Um, the last few questions are ones I love to ask all founders that come on here because I feel like there's always just great responses.
Yeah.
The first one is, being an entrepreneur, being a founder. I'm sure you're just busy all the time. There's always something you can be doing. What do you use? Like, what tools do you use to track, goals, daily tasks, and really just to get shit done? Like, what do you? Are you an app guy? Are you a pen and paper kind of guy? Like, what do you do to organize your life?
Yeah, I'm very old school. I have a notebook and I have literally, I put a check mark for every assignment that I do, and I write a list every day. I don't have an app. In my previous jobs, I use Trello and all that stuff, but I prefer just a pen and a paper and
Sure.
just writing my assignments. I take a lot of screenshots on my phone, and then I look at my photos, and they remind me of my assignments. So again,
Ah.
it's some sort of technology, but it's still for older people, I guess. I just take screenshots, and like if I had a conversation with someone or an email that I need to go back to, so I'll screenshot it and then I'll go back in my photos and I'll see what I need to do. I know some people send text to themselves, but I don't do that. I just take screenshots. But yeah, I write down everything, and I'm trying to be as quick to respond. I know that I don't like when I wait for something for a long time. So sometimes it's a disadvantage because, like you said, I have a lot of things to do, and sometimes I should push things to give it a few more days that it's not urgent, but this is just something that I need to work on.
Yeah, I know for me personally, I use pen and paper too. I use something called like a full focus planner. But one thing that's
Yeah.
helped me, I try to batch my emails. I'm not great at it, especially if something urgent comes up. I obviously I usually jump all over it, but um, I try my best to have like 3 times a day where I like not leaving my email up and like morning, lunch, and then at some point in the evening and then probably like later at night,
Yeah.
just because I feel like I can crank through them and usually respond to things. But yeah, everyone's got it different. So that's really interesting. I like the screenshot idea. That's unique. I
Yeah.
haven't heard that one before.
And that's great with the emails. It's definitely something I need to work on. Like I get an email and I need to respond right away. And sometimes I'm holding myself and then it's a task to respond to this email. So it's becoming even more of a process, just, emails.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good advice.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, email can be overwhelming if you let it. Um, Source of knowledge. So, what would you recommend to the audience as far as a book, a podcast, any source of knowledge that you love that you would recommend?
Yeah. So I unfortunately it's really hard for me to focus with books, which something else that I need to work on. But I listen to some audiobooks. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so podcasts like yours or How I Built That, or lots of other podcasts that talk with founders. I find it that sometimes I might not listen to the entire episode, but I'll skim through it and I'll just take notes from what worked for others, and then I'll try it on my business as well. And it really helped me in a lot of ways, big to small, tactical to more strategy wise, and just listening to more ideas and more founders that did these things in the past definitely helped me a lot.
Love that. I know I was actually talking to a founder yesterday and I said, it's been kind of crazy to think if you think back even, a decade ago when podcasts were barely out there, like in the last 10 years, what podcasts have done and like the ability to have like this
Yeah,
conversation may have never happened if podcasts weren't a thing. It's kind of crazy to think like at scale, like just how many conversations between interesting people have been able to take place that maybe and then shared and people can listen to it. Podcasts to me I'm with you. They're such a source of knowledge. I recently this year, I did make the hard switch over to audiobooks. I try to do it like when I work out or like something where I'm paying attention, but I'm not just like sitting at my desk working.
yeah,
I feel like I can crank through and actually learn a lot more in audiobooks that way. So that's a good one. Appreciate it. Um, Last one and most important one. How can people follow along with your journey and how can they follow along and try Waka Coffee?
yeah. Well, first they can buy it on our website, wakacoffee.com, or Amazon. If you live in Texas and there's a Central Market next to you, we'll love to support with our first retail partner.
Love that.
And then our social media, like I said, I have interns, and I'm trying myself on TikTok, so definitely follow us there, and other channels too. My email is David at Waka Coffee. If somebody wants to reach out, I'll try not to respond in 5 minutes, but
Yeah, we're gonna test you now.
yeah, feel free to email. I love talking with other entrepreneurs and learning from them, and definitely open to conversations and hearing, ideas and share ideas. I'm trying not to hide things because even when I have conversations with investors, like, did you sign an NDA? I try to do all these things, but again, it's all about execution. Like, nobody will
Sure.
steal your vision. Nobody will, they might, but it's at the end of the day, it's mostly execution. There are a bunch of bars, there are a bunch of coffee brands. It's who you are and how you create that brand. So I'm, open and transparent as much as I can.
Love that. Yeah, I think that's so true. I used to feel the other way. I used to feel like I couldn't share my ideas because someone would steal it. And then slowly but surely, after talking to people on the podcast, I totally agree with you. Like, everyone's got good ideas.
Yeah,
Very few people execute and stick through it and keep pushing when it starts to get tough or it's not as fun. And that's when the magic happens. So totally agree.
exactly.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much for your time. This was a great episode, and good luck with Waka Coffee. Excited to see what you guys do next, and definitely gonna get my hands on some and try it out.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Really had a lot of fun talking to you, and yeah, I'm here if I can help with anything.
Awesome. I appreciate it, David. Well, thank you, and thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk soon.